the class recording. Thank you, Sandy. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be to all of you. And my name is Sophia Said. I'm the executive director of the Interfaith Center, which is the host and the sponsor of this program. Peace, salam, shalom to all our new participants. And thank you so much for the familiar faces that I'm loving as I see you on this Zoom. So, Interfaith Explorations, and for this season, Cultivating Spirituality in Our Daily Lives. We have been having this program at the Interfaith Center since the fall of 2019. The purpose of these classes is to have open conversations about faith and spirituality, build relationships, become more spiritually literate, each in our own way for the common good of our world. And while we do that, we also seek to help others around us develop and deepen their spirituality in their own personal lives as they understand and appreciate the experiences of others as well. Like I said, Interfaith Center is a program, Spiritual Explorations is a program of the Interfaith Center, which is a nonprofit in Little Rock committed to reducing fear and prejudice among world religions. And we do that through education, through dialogue, and through relationship building opportunities. Along with me right here is our moderator for these classes and our teacher, Professor J. McDaniels, my dear friend, who has been with us for the last 5 years for these classes. J. McDaniel specializes in Buddhism, process philosophy, constructive theology, eco-theology, interfaith dialogue, and spirituality in an age of consumerism. Jay is a distinguished professor emeritus who has taught world religions for over 30 years at Hendrix College. And Jay helps his students understand how people live and think in different parts of the world, especially when they're shaped by their religious point of views. He loves to help students develop their own philosophies and theologies, which I think I have benefited a lot from. And he does that for people who belong to a specific faith group and also people who are not interested in any religion. Dr. McDaniel thinks himself as a constructive theologian, and he encourages his students to recognize that they also can become creative thinkers in their own right. Now, for the co-sponsors of this program. So we have two co-sponsors in this session, Cobb Institute in California and Process and Faith. A little bit about both of them. Cobb Institute is named in the honor of their founder, John Cobb, and it's inspired by the knowledge that all life is interconnected and in the process of becoming. The Cobb Institute promotes process and relational ways of understanding and living in the world. They seek to cultivate ecological civilizations through just and compassionate communities, and we are very grateful for your support. The second sponsor for Interfaith Explorations in spring of 2023 is Process and Faith. Process and Faith is a collaborative project between Cobb Institute and Center for Process Studies, and it features faith leaders from different traditions offering workshops and learning circles, and these leaders share insights concerning what it means to be a whole person, a whole community, and how we might work together to help protect and nourish a whole planet. Now, after the sponsors, lastly but not the least, I want to talk a little bit about Spirituality and Practice website, which has been a main text and resource for all our class sessions since fall of 2019. This website, which you have seen, and I have sent more information about it in my emails to you, it serves people of all religions and spiritual paths, and people with no religion, or who are seekers and trying to find a spiritual path. It's a very multi-faith, multicultural, multi-spiritual website founded by Frederick and Mary Ann Brissett, who are devoted to creating and cultivating resources for people who are on their spiritual journey. And it has been a magnificent and wonderful friend to us at the Interfaith Center, providing us the resource for our classes. When you go on the website, you will see one of the resource that they provide is a spiritual alphabet or alphabet of spiritual literacy. And that is what we have used as a lens for most of our classes for the last 3 years. We have had sessions in which we have helped, in which we have talked about spirituality through different medium of art, medium of music, film, our daily religious experiences like dreams, silence, food, parenting. We spend a lot of time on sacred scripture, on film, media, and advertisement. But any time when we were looking at these mediums and seeing how spirituality is embedded or promoted through them, we always used spiritual alphabet as our lens or as our framework for our own understanding. However, there is one thing different about this spring session, is that we are not using any other medium like art, music, or poetry. We are actually only going to focus on spiritual alphabet this time. And in every class session, we are going to pick 2 different letters, and we're going to send you information about them ahead of time. And during the class session, we will learn from each other's spiritual journey through the lens of those 2 letters. And I hope for the next whole week, we go and practice them in our personal lives. If you miss a session, no worries, the classes are recorded. They're available on our YouTube. And for that reason, I also ask that you keep yourself on mute till it's your time or turn to talk. Now, after this background on the class, and I want to give it to our teacher, Jay, who will first introduce spiritual alphabet to us, and then we will start with our primary and first letter A. Jay, you are on. And you are on mute. So let's unmute you first.
All right. I think can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Good. I want to say that Sophia speaks of me as the teacher, but I think we all know that Sophia is our teacher also, and in an extremely important way, by who she is, by what she says, by what she does. And her example of interfaith work in Arkansas and in other places, really remarkable. And so you inspire by word and by deed, and we appreciate it. And we also appreciate the mosque, which she helped start, a Medina Mosque in Little Rock. And I always think of that mosque as a sponsor of this too, in spirit, if not formally. So thanks to all of, thanks to Sophia, and thanks to the Muslim community in Arkansas.
Can I add one thing quickly?
Yeah.
So when we started this specific program of the Interfaith Center, we actually hosted these classes in the Medina Mosque, and we met in the mosque for a year, for fall of 2019 and also for spring of 2020. And of course, that had a different vibe to it because we were in person, we were meeting, learning, and also we were having tea and snacks right after our classes. So I missed that time, and we all wish to go back to that starting 2022. But then we realized if we go back to meeting in person again, then we will lose this wonderful group, this wonderful interfaith community that we have created from outside Arkansas. So yeah, that's why we're not back in the mosque again.
Yes. Well, I better be careful, or I'm just going to spend my whole time talking about how great the Medina Mosque is. I am going to say one more thing. When we first started meeting, the mosque asked me to teach a course in the world's religions. So here's a mosque in Little Rock, Arkansas, inviting me to go through all the world's religions at their best and to share those religious perspectives from the inside no filters, no censorship. We need that. We as a Little Rock community need that. And it was Medina Mosque that sponsored that. So that's my last bit of praise for Medina Mosque for the next 10 minutes, and I'll probably do it again. So a word about the spiritual alphabet, and then a word about the letter A. First, the spiritual alphabet. In teaching the world's religions to college undergraduates for 39 years, I had Christians, Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, Zoroastrians, Baha'i, Hindus, and a good many who would call themselves spiritual but not religious. And by that, they meant spiritually interested but not religiously affiliated. And I had to try to encourage them to learn about all the world's religions with sensitivity not only to their formal beliefs or their practices or their histories, but with their spiritualities. I say that in plural, spiritualities. It's not just one thing. And what did I mean by that? I meant something about feeling, and something about emotion, and something about internal aspiration. What's it like to be inside the skin of a Muslim? What's it like to be inside the skin of a Jew? And you can't represent anybody and everybody, and to hear the music of your tradition. What do you hear? And what do you feel? That's about the time that I discovered the alphabet for spiritual literacy of spirituality and practice. And it gave me a vocabulary for naming some of the feelings, some of the intuitions that are important to people in many religions, all the religions. And I thought, thank you so much for giving me this vocabulary, because I didn't have it, and now I do. And it would speak to the students who are spiritual but not religious, as well as the students who were affiliated. So if you looked at the alphabet, A is for attention, B is for beauty, C is both for connection and for compassion, D is for devotion, E is for enthusiasm, F is for faith and also for forgiveness, G is for gratitude, H is for hospitality, I is for imagination, J is for justice, K is for kindness, L is for listening, M is for meaning, making meaning, finding meaning in life. N is for nurturing. O is for openness. P is for peace. Q is for questing, that sense of adventure. R is for reverence. S is for two things. It's for silence, and it's also for shadow, for owning and being honest about the shadow side of your life, my life, the world in which we live. So S is an invitation to critique and not just proclaim, and self-critique as well. T is for teachers. And we might think of teachers as human beings, and of course they are. But teachers can also be the earth, animals, land, experiences. In the house of teaching, there are many rooms. L-M-N-O-P-Q-R-S-T-U. U is for a sense of unity. Not unity as sameness, but unity as harmony. V is for vision. L-M-N-O-P-Q-R-S-T-U. W is for wonder. I'm kind of losing my, help me here with the next one. What comes after W? Oh, what is it? Is it X?
X. X.
Oh, and everybody wants to know, okay, what's X going to stand for? X is for a sense of mystery. It's for the recognition that you can't put everything in a box and put a frame around everything. That some things are beautiful in their mysteriousness, not inframeable in theologies, dogmas, doctrines, or anything like that. After X comes a Y. Y is for you, Y-O-U. You know, there's a form of spirituality that's especially meaningful to people that have been disenfranchised, oppressed, neglected, ignored. And their deepest form of spirituality is not to transcend the ego, but to find an ego. To be able to say, I am somebody. I count too. You can't do that to me. I matter too. And there may be something about me that's beautiful too. So Y is for you. And Z is for zest for life, for zeal, for embracing the fullness of life. Now, what I found is that some people like some of those letters more than others, or are drawn to them more than others. Personally, I think some religions are better at some than they are at others. I think the religions don't have them all. That's why it's so good that there are many religions. They can give us tastes of the other that we lack. And sometimes when people talk about spirituality, they focus only on the ethical, kindness, compassion, justice. Of course, that's good, but they forget wonder, play. Oh, P is for play as well as peace. So, you know, we just need them all as human beings. So I think of it as an interfaith spiritual alphabet. And you can use any theology you want to understand it further. You can understand it Islamically, Jewishly, Christianly, Hinduli, Buddhistly, Jainishly, Jainism, Native Americanly. There's no single theology or philosophy that needs to claim monopoly on this. So the rest of my time, I'm going to use to talk about the first one, A. A is for attention. And growing up a Christian, if you're Christian, you know that Christians place a lot of emphasis on belief. Many of them do, especially Protestant Christians. So religion's about believing things. And I certainly think there's a role in life for belief. But you may know that those of us that emphasize belief can get lost in our heads. And we can kind of think what it's all about is what I believe, what I affirm in my mind. And that came home to me when I was the English teacher for a Zen Buddhist priest turned master when I was a seminarian many years ago. I had gotten interested in Buddhism, was taking a course in Buddhism, and my teacher called me one day and she said, a Zen Buddhist priest from Japan is coming here for 1 year to brush up on his English. He's had the Enlightenment experience. And he wants you to, we need for you to be his English teacher for 1 full year. And besides that, to take him around and let him experience America. You're his teacher. Enlightenment doesn't count for anything unless it can be lived in your daily life. And amid diversity and things that are different and unusual. So your task, Jay, is to be the English teacher for this Zen priest and to take him to America, show him America. So I did. This was in Southern California, and we were together every day for 1 full year. And I would teach him English, then I would take him around Southern California, Baskin Robbins, Hollywood, churches, synagogues, mosques, colleges, monasteries, movie theaters. We saw The Sound of Music together. And my task was to immerse him in the American reality. But what I discovered is that for him, authentic religion had a whole lot to do with paying attention in the here and the now. I experienced him as much more present to life and to me than I was. So here was a philosophy major that could be kind of lost in his head. And here was this rock solid Zen priest that was simply attentive and alert to the here and the now. And in all honesty, I don't think I'd ever quite gotten that message in my Christian upbringing. We were good at faith. We were sometimes okay at forgiveness and love, but not attention. So I'm grateful to him, and that's why I wanted to choose attention. Now, in the house, there's so many kinds of attention. For my Zen master, it was attention to eating when you eat and drinking when you drink. It was being here now. If you're drinking a cup of coffee, taste that coffee. Don't be elsewhere. Be here. I want to mention another kind of attention, though, and read a poem for you. This is kind of my favorite poem, and if some of you have been with me before, you've heard me say it before, so I just ask your forgiveness. Here it is again, and it's called Collecting Scraps of Light. It's by a poet named Deborah Cooper. It's about attention. I see the way the chickadees take turns at the feeder. I watch a neighbor take her husband's hand. I see the way the sun will find the only interruption in dark clouds to toss this amber light across the pines. I see a row of cars stop on the road until the orange cat has safely crossed, then take off slowly should she change her mind. I watch the way my brother lifts our mother from the wheelchair in the car, the shawl he lays across her lap. I save up every scrap of light because I know that it will take each tiny consolation every day to mend the world. So this poet, Deborah Cooper, gives us the image of scraps of light, moments that we witness that are, I'll use Christian language here, holy icons through which light shines. We see something of God, of divinity, of the deep mystery in the concrete scraps of light. The orange cat crossing the road, and the cars stopping and waiting to make sure the orange cat does not cross back before they move on. The brother taking his mother out of the car onto the wheelchair and putting a shawl over her lap. The sun shining through the pines. The light itself. The neighbors holding hands. All of those are scraps of light. But it takes attention to notice them. It takes being present, not living in your head, not living in my head. I'll preach to myself here. But looking and seeing and hearing. And sometimes I'm sure you know, I know, that philosophy and theology and religion can get in the way. Can get in the way from simple attention. So I would say to my friend, my Zen friend, let's talk about Buddhism. And he'd say to me, throw it away. Don't get lost in the isms and the ologies. Just look. So that's A for attention. Does that make any sense to you? And let me open it out now for all of us. Do you find that something like attention of that sort can be, you'd like to be part of your own way of living in the world, part of your own spiritual life? And can you think of examples of where attention has awakened you in a good way? Anybody? We need an attention story.
I will kick it off. My name's Sandy. I am the administrator with Sophia, just to maybe make y'all feel a little more comfortable. My husband's in a nursing home. He's 63 and he is dying of Alzheimer's, and being the attention, you have to be very attentive, because they still try to communicate, and I may miss something that he's trying to tell me. And just knowing that these moments are going to be the last moments, that is something that's been very hard for me, because really my first reaction is to escape, to pull back, because it's very hard. But I've learned now, when I go in there, that I am so attentive. I don't even know if someone comes in the room. I don't know anything that's going on. All I know is I need to take care of where my focus is, be completely in his facial expressions, his body movements. He doesn't speak, but being in that moment, just spending time with him, because to me at this point, every moment is precious and I don't want to miss a thing. So learning to be attentive is not one of the easiest things in the world.
Sandy, thank you so much. Perfect. Thank you. Elizabeth, you're muted.
So this was an experience that I had. I go to Jewish services and the prayer books and reading together out loud and responsive reading and saying the prayers out loud yourself are a very important part of the service. It's just the way it's always done. And I was finding my mind wandering when I was trying to follow the words and just read the words, that my mind would wander in ways that were unhelpful. So I started not having a prayer book and really listening to the words. And I know a lot of the prayers by heart, obviously, and I will sometimes join in when I hear it in my heart and my mind, but I also look at the other people, get the feeling of what is happening. And that for me is a much more spiritual experience than trying to follow in the book or reading it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And you were coming in and out, but I think we could all get that. And to be in a worship service and to listen and to be present. And at the end, she said, not following the book, listening to the sound. Anybody else, a kind of attention you'd like to lift up?
Dan Reimer has his hand up.
Dan, sorry, yes, sorry, Dan. You're muted, Dan.
Last night I was listening to a program, and the speaker asked, in regard to children, do you know how to spell love? And after a pregnant pause, he said, T-I-M-E. So time and attention are what our children really need in order for us to love them.
Hmm.
And as I was thinking about combining time and attention, you know, so often as a father, I was trying to do things while my children were talking to me, and I had the aha modality in action, and wasn't really paying attention to them. And sometimes they'd kind of catch me up, and dad. So, you know, attention is a form of love, I think. Now, what's interesting is, as many of you know, I come from the Baha'i faith, and we have a marvelous website called Ocean, which is really a search engine for all the Baha'i writings. So I just typed in attention, and I found that it's used 768 times. And I just reviewed a little bit of it, and many of them are coupled in a phrase that says, call attention to, and a whole variety of things that we should pay attention to. But then what was interesting is I also found some things that said, deserves no attention. You know, maybe the shadow side. Anyway, I just for what it's worth.
Thank you, Dan.
By the way, I wanted to introduce my friends, Mark and Lori Gilman, who have just moved to Conway from Haifa, Israel, where they served at the World Center for a number of years. So, welcome, guys.
Welcome.
Welcome. David, thank you so much, Dan.
One type of attention that I've learned to use, I hope somewhat effectively, is I'm a licensed counselor, and when you're in that mode of trying to help somebody, especially in crisis, to be attentive to all the subtleties of how we communicate with one another, and how we communicate our fears, our traumas, and our hopes in other contexts. That has been the moments that feels right for me has been sometimes kind of transformative. Thank you.
Thank you, David. It's time to turn to B for beauty. I want to leave us with a question that I wrestle with and invite you to co-wrestle in your way. If you think of, and maybe we've touched on this, particularly Sandy, if you think of difficult circumstances, diseases, tragedies, horrible things that happen in our lives and in the world, you know, they're not exactly scraps of light, at least in an obvious way. We can't look at them and say, yes, there the holy is shining. We may be able to, but I have a hard time with that one. But still, there needs to be attention, to not hide, to not look away, but to move into it. So I think my question is, can you think of anything that maybe, Dan, that does not deserve attention? Maybe there are some things, but I'm not so sure. Let's leave it with that. Let's turn to beauty, and we can mull over that as we wish. Sophia.
Yeah, let's go to beauty. And that's a very good question to leave us with. I'll ponder over it during the week. The reason we didn't pick B for beauty because we are going to go in an order, because we will not. The reason I picked B after A is because they are so intimately connected. When we look at something, when we gaze at an object, like the quote that I sent about attention, we bring blessings to it through our contemplation on the object. Because if we don't look at someone or something or some place or some event, with the love and the attention it deserves, we never discover the divinity that is embedded in it. So I really feel that without attention, we cannot actually discover the beauty, or as I call it, divinity that permeates in everything all around us. So, attention is a prerequisite for beauty. And I think for most of the spiritual practices that we will talk about in the next 10 weeks. But beauty, honestly, I have struggled with this whole concept of beauty, its definition, and what is beautiful and what is not beautiful. And that's true for many scholars and philosophers too, because it's been hard to come up with one definition of beauty, but everybody does agree that beauty is somehow associated with an experience that evokes a feeling of peace or pleasure or calm or elevation in human heart. And those experiences can come from artificial projects, man-made projects, nature, action, gestures. I pick beauty um, because it comes easy to me to find beauty in things. I pick beauty because my tradition, my faith tradition, has helped me actually find beauty very, very, very easily. And that's one thing actually I'm grateful to Islam for. So I'm going to actually talk about a couple of concepts on beauty from Islam, and then I'm going to read a poem which I'm not going to plan, which I was not planning on, because last time when we talked about beauty, I read that poem. But Jay, since you repeated a poem, I think I'm going to repeat it because my concept of beauty through my own self and through Islam, everything is expressed in that poem, and it would be a good springboard. So, so beauty from an Islamic perspective. I so to me, beauty emanates from God because God is beautiful. And in our scripture in Islam, it's very, very clearly laid it out there. And I used to wonder on it. So we understand God, or we learn about God through the 99 names of God, which are the 99 qualities of God, because that's the only way we can conceptualize God. For example, Rahman, the most beneficent one. As-Salam, the one from the source of all peace in the world. Al-Aziz, the mighty one. Al-Khaliq, the creator. So there are these 99 names which tells us about different qualities or attributes of God. And one of those 99 names is Jamil, Al-Jamil. And Jamil means beautiful. And there are two scriptures in our text, in our sacred text, that I always go back to when it comes to beauty. And first one is a tradition by a prophet in which he says, Inna Allaha Jamilu Yuhibbul Jamal. Indeed, God is beautiful and he loves beauty. So God is beautiful. God loves beauty. Second scripture that I always go to when I'm thinking about beauty or reflecting upon beauty is Allazi ahsana kulla shay'in khalaqihi. And it means in English that God has beautified everything that he has created. Or in other words, God has put beauty in everything that he has created. And this objective sense of beauty is really important for me because growing up, I always looked at beauty as a very subjective thing. Coming from kids, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. So it could be different for everybody. But as I started learning, I realized, or I adopted this objective or absolute sense of Jamal, beauty, that beauty lies in everything. It's up to us how we discover it or if we discover it. But God is beautiful. He created beauty. It lies all around us. It permeates through everything. And it's our job to find that beauty in everything around us. And if I go to history, our Sufi poets, our architects, and even in our culture, I see people try to beautify things all the time. Like my mom used to beautify the tea set that she loved for her afternoon tea ritual. Or when I see these horrible looking big pens, I want to just beautify them by putting something on them, because beauty is intrinsic to human beings, I believe. Whether we see physical beauty around us in innate objects like a tea set or a rock, or in natural things like clouds or cats or trees or flowers, it's there. It's there. And then there is, of course, a lot of mention, those who know about Islam, about sensible beauty, beauty that we find in harmony, in geometry, in balance, in peace, in diversity. And then there's another concept of moral beauty, beauty which is rooted in justice and fairness and small acts of kindness, beauty that comes from courage. And again, diversity. I mean, I think diversity is so beautiful, but all of that, how do we see that beauty, especially the beauty which is not seeable or visible with naked eye? How do we see it? And that's where comes soul beauty. And I learned it from Patricia Adams Farmer. Those of you who were in that session with us, she talked about beauty a lot. And she talked about soul beauty, having a big soul, a fat soul, a soul which is accepting of tensions and not letting the tensions deplete us. If we have soul beauty, then we can recognize beauty in everything around us. But to end, I believe that my sense of beauty comes from the fact that I believe God is beautiful, God loves beauty, and when we love God, we become beautiful and we discover our own beauty as we start paying attention to it. And the more we pay attention to it, the more beautiful we become. And we become beautiful in the way we walk, and the way we talk, and the way we serve, and the way we act, and the way we communicate, and we emanate beauty, and we create beauty around us when we discover the beauty in us. So that's my sense of beauty. But I really want to read this poem, which those of you who have been in our classes have heard before, so I apologize, but it's so beautiful. It talks about the objective sense of beauty and subjective sense of beauty. It's a poem by Khalil Gibran, and the name of the poem is On Beauty. So, and it's rather long, so stay with me, close your eyes if you want to as I read the poem. And that's where we'll stop. I'll stop and I'll open it to you all. So Khalil Gibran goes, On Beauty. And a poet said, Speak to us of beauty. And he answered, Where shall you seek beauty and how shall you find her unless she herself be your way and be your guide? And how shall you speak of beauty except she be the weaver of your speech? The aggrieved and the injured say, Beauty is kind and gentle, like a young mother half shy of her own glory. She walks among us. But the passionate say, Nay, beauty is a thing of might and dread. Like the tempest, she shakes the earth beneath us and the sky above us. And the tired and the weary say, Beauty is of soft whispering. She speaks to our spirit. Her voice yields to our silences like a faint light that quivers in fear of the shadows. And the restless say, We have heard of beauty shouting among the mountains. With her cries came the sound of hoofs and the beating of wings and the roaring of lions. At night, the watchmen of the city say, Beauty shall rise with the dawn from the east. And at the noontide, the toilers and the travelers say, we have seen her leaning over the earth from the windows of the sunset. In winter, the snowbounder says, beauty comes with spring leaping upon the hill. And in the summer, the reapers say, we have seen her dancing with the autumn leaves. And we saw a drift of snow in her hair. All these things that you have said of beauty, yet in truth you spoke not of her, but of needs unsatisfied. And beauty is not a need, but an ecstasy. It is not a mouth thirsting, nor an empty hand, but rather a heart inflamed and a soul chanted. It is not the image you see, nor the song you hear, but rather an image you see though you close your eyes, and a song you hear when you shut your ears. It is not the sap within the furrowed bark, nor a wing attached to a claw, but rather a garden forever in bloom and a flock of angels forever in flight. O people of love, beauty is life. When life unveils her holy face, but you are life, and you are the veil. Beauty is eternity, gazing at itself in a mirror. But you are eternity, and you are the mirror, and you are the beauty. So I give you the poem to reflect upon your own spiritual journey and share where you see beauty, what role beauty plays in your life through your passions or desires or spirituality, where it transforms you or where you don't find it. So we have 12 minutes. Angie, I open it up for discussion if you'll moderate.
Do think about the role that beauty plays in your life. You know, Plato said there are 3 values people live by. Good values, truth and goodness and beauty. And sometimes people can so emphasize truth that they forget the other 2, or so emphasize goodness that they can forget the other 2. But sometimes beauty gets is 3rd place. And I think Sophia lifts it into 1st place, or at least equal place. How about for you? Where do you find beauty? And where is that part of your own spiritual aliveness?
There's a comment by Sally in which says, beauty sometimes just slaps me breathless, calling my attention to it.
I respect what you said, Sophia, about looking for beauty and finding ways to see beauty in everything. But sometimes it's the other way around. I'm not even paying attention. And I just have to, it just stops me in my tracks sometimes. And there's my attention. There's a little prayer.
You know, it's one of the situations. Can I be heard?
Yeah, go ahead.
I am not Carol Rose. I'm Neil Rose. And the beauty in our family is with Carol. We have a concept in Judaism called Hadrat Kodesh, the beauty of holiness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those places where I think we and the brothers and sisters in Islam really merge. So the notion, for example, of Hadrat Kodesh is sometimes talked about in the way in which you worship God, that that you bring to the worship of God a certain kind of beauty. Sometimes it has to do with the beauty of the ritual object. Sometimes it has to do with the intentionality that you bring to it, right? But beauty is very much a part of the reality of God and the reality of who we are as human beings. It's something that in Judaism we strive for. One of the words for beauty is tiferet, and then in the Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, tiferet is the product of love and justice, of chesed and gevurah. It's, I think, what Plato was talking about, kind of a balance of things. So in Judaism, beauty figures very prominently, particularly in the experiential realm of our relationship with each other and our relationship with God. Before I finish, Carol mentioned to me that there are some brothers and sisters from the Baha'i community, and I'm wondering if I can be in contact with them. I have a favor to ask of them, even though I don't know who they are.
Neil, I'm happy to send you information on Dan and Jennifer Reimer. They're both in the group and the leaders in the Baha'i community here.
Okay, if you could
I'll send you their email.
Carol, I would appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Will do.
Anybody else on beauty? On beauty? Yes, please. These are our friends just returned from Israel, right? Yes.
Right. And we're also Baha'is. Mark.
Yeah.
There's some work going on outside my house, so I hope the saw doesn't start drying up. If it does, I'm going to run outside with the tablet. But I think, all these names of God, all of these values and virtues are interconnected. And my own struggle has been not really a struggle, it's a quest more than a struggle. But my concern has been, and it's in the spirit of a Baha'i teaching, which, Baha'u'llah says, regard man as a mine in which are deposited gems of inestimable value. So these names of God that were spoken of are focalized in the soul of every human being. And so the task becomes for me to try and attune myself, to attend to the beauty that's just shining forth of the light of God in every soul, and stop my ears, not attend the thing that Dan was saying, I suppose, to the cultural scripts and so on that tell me, well, judge this person through this lens, or react to a outer form of a human being, for that reason. There's a metaphorical story. It's in the Baha'i tradition that we should see every human being that crosses our path as like a letter from God. And the envelope may be crumpled, it may be soiled, the writing on it may be smudged. But inside of that envelope, if we can delve into it, is this radiance of the Godhead shining. And so, I think the world could be healed, and and it's healing for us too, right? To try and see one another like through that lens. Emerson captured this, where he said, every human being is like a crystal, and we turn that crystal in the light until the spectrum shines out from that soul. So yeah, that's my own way of connecting to these topics, is to try and pay attention to the beauty, which is down there somewhere deep in some folks, but it's in all of us. Thank you for creating this space.
Thank you. Yes. Sophia, in terms of time, I see about 5 minutes. Do we have time for one more? Or is it time to draw to a close? You're muted. Unmute.
I hope so.
Unmute.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Jay. We have 4 minutes. I just need a few seconds to close. So please.
Okay. Well, then anybody else, a comment, a beauty comment? Yeah, Lori.
Hi, thank you. So for me, listening to Sophia read that poem, not just listening, but attentively watching seemed almost like a transmission, actually, of beauty and faith and love and celebration. It really was so powerful for me just to see and hear and kind of feel that.
What's that?
So I wanted to thank Sophia for the passion in that, and surprising, right? I love being surprised by beauty. It feels like maybe that's when God is meditating me. I came down a road, I turned down a road the other evening, and the moon was bigger than I'd ever seen it, ever, and orange. And I literally gasped. And those are some of the favorite moments of my life when something like that happens. It's so beautiful. It just feels a little bit like it demolishes me in a certain way. It just, whew. So thanks for the conversation and the topic today.
Thank you so much, Lori. I bet we have time for one more, if anybody'd like to share. Alan? Unmute, Alan.
I just, I'm in a pretty unique situation in that I got my PhD in Oklahoma and had no idea what I was getting into, but I became immensely influenced by the American Indian ways of knowing there. And, they really, a lot of American Indian nations and societies look for the beauty in others, and it's a major part of the culture. The part I wanted to highlight was how they see what they would term two-spirit people. And, it is such a beautiful way of embracing people from a diversity standpoint. And it's, that they recognize that there's the level of exploration, the beauty in the exploration, that and the knowledge that comes from being open to yourself in a different way. And I've always found that really meaningful.
Alan, can you say really quickly what two-spirit people means? Really quickly. Unmute.
Sorry. Well, two-spirit people would refer to anybody from the LGBTQ plus community. And so that's what I'm referring to.
Okay, all right, thank you. Sophia.
Thank you, Jay. It's almost time to close. I'll say just one sentence before closing. I have always found beauty in differences when they come together in harmony and balance with each other. So there's an immense beauty in differences for me. And with that, it's time for us to close. We want to stay at 1 hour mark. Jay and I give you all these two practices of attention and beauty to take with you for the next 7 days. And may your attentiveness and presence bring out the beauty in objects and actions and persons around you. We will see you all next Wednesday at noon. We will be sending you 2 new letters with some quotes to reflect upon and find spirituality in your daily lives. Peace, salam, and shalom.
Thank you, Sophia and Jay. It was a wonderful meeting. Aloha pa.
Sandy, you can close the recording.
Sandy, yeah. If I could say a